The council chamber of the Galactic Federation hung suspended in the void between star systems, its transparent walls offering an unobstructed view of the cosmos beyond. I adjusted my auditory membranes as Ambassador Velkreen of the Torathi Collective slammed 3 of his appendages against the podium, creating a sound that reverberated through the assembled delegates like a shockwave. "This is an outrage," he bellowed, his skin shifting through colors that signaled extreme agitation. "The humans have established another training facility, this time on the border of our territory, and we demand answers." I, Commander Thessa Vorn of the Archival Defense Network, watched from my seat in the upper gallery, mandibles clicking in what my human colleagues had taught me was the equivalent of a suppressed laugh. 3 cycles. It had taken only 3 cycles since humanity joined the Federation for this inevitable confrontation to occur. I had warned them. Oh, how I had warned them all. High Chancellor Morvax, his bulk filling the central dais, raised one massive claw for silence. The murmuring throughout the chamber died to a whisper. "Ambassador Velkreen," he rumbled, "the humans have violated no treaties. They are permitted to establish educational institutions wherever their territorial agreements allow." "Educational institutions?" Velkreen's voice climbed to a pitch that made my auditory membranes retract instinctively. "High Chancellor, with respect, we are not fools. These are not schools for teaching mathematics or philosophy. The facility on Kepler 7 has been classified as a military academy." A ripple of concerned chittering spread through the assembled representatives. The Nethric delegation withdrew their sensory stalks in alarm. Even the usually stoic Praxian observers seemed to lean forward with interest. I felt a tap on my shoulder plating and turned to find Captain Marcus Reeves standing behind me, his primate face arranged in that peculiar expression humans called a smile. "Enjoying the show?" he asked quietly, sliding into the seat beside me. "Your species has a remarkable talent for causing panic," I whispered back, keeping my voice modulator set to its lowest setting. 3 cycles, Marcus. 3 cycles before someone noticed." "Someone always notices," he replied with a shrug that seemed entirely too casual given the circumstances. "The question is whether they understand what they are seeing." Down on the floor, Velkreen was building momentum, his tentacles gesturing wildly. "We demand full disclosure. What are the humans training their young to do in these academies? What weapons are they teaching them to use? What tactics are they learning?" High Chancellor Morvax turned his great head toward the human delegation's box. "Ambassador Liu, perhaps you would care to address the Council's concerns." Ambassador Catherine Liu stood with the kind of grace I had learned to associate with human confidence. She was a small woman, by human standards, barely reaching the chest plating of most species in the Federation. But there was something in her bearing that made others step back when she entered a room. I had seen her negotiate trade agreements that left species with centuries more experience wondering what had just happened. "High Chancellor, members of the Council," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber, "the Torathi Collective's concerns are noted and understood. However, I must clarify a fundamental misunderstanding about the nature of our training academies." "Misunderstanding?" Velkreen interrupted. "We have intelligence reports, surveillance data. Your facilities are equipped with weapons ranges, combat simulation chambers, and what your people call obstacle courses that would kill most species attempting them." Catherine's expression did not change. "Ambassador Velkreen, may I ask you a question? When the Torathi send their youth to your warrior lodges, do you consider this a threat to neighboring systems?" Velkrin's skin flushed a deep purple. That is entirely different. The warrior lodges teach honor, discipline, and the traditions of our people. They do not train soldiers. And yet, Catherine continued smoothly, your warrior lodge graduates staff 90% of your military's command structure. Curious coincidence, wouldn't you say? I heard Marcus chuckle beside me. She's got him, he murmured. The High Chancellor raised his claw again. Ambassador Liu, please address the specific concern. What exactly are humans being trained to do at these academies? Catherine took a moment, her eyes scanning the assembled delegates with an intensity that made several of them shift uncomfortably. When she spoke again, her voice had lost its diplomatic smoothness, replaced by something harder, something that sent a chill through my thermal regulation system. The Academy trains humans, she said simply. That is all. The silence that followed was profound. That tells us nothing, Velkrin protested. On the contrary, Catherine replied, it tells you everything you need to know. You asked which humans are trained at these facilities. The answer is any human who wishes to attend and meets our standards. You asked what they learn. They learn to be human. This is deliberate obfuscation. Velkrin was practically vibrating with frustration now. We demand specifics. What weapons systems? What combat doctrines? What are you preparing them for? For the first time since standing, Catherine's expression shifted. The diplomatic mask slipped, just for a moment, and what I saw beneath made my primary heart skip a beat. It was not anger, not quite. It was something colder, more ancient, something that had looked out from human eyes long before they reached the stars. You want specifics, Ambassador? She asked quietly. Very well. Let me tell you about the Academy. The chamber had gone so quiet, I could hear the environmental systems humming in the walls. The Academy does not teach weapon systems, Catherine began. Any human with basic education can learn to operate a pulse rifle or pilot a combat shuttle. Those are skills, Ambassador, and skills are easy. The Academy teaches something far more fundamental. Which is? High Chancellor Morvax prompted. Survival, Catherine said. Under any circumstances, against any odds, regardless of resources, support, or hope. I watched as several delegates exchanged confused glances. The Praxian observer leaned toward his companion, whispering something I could not quite hear. Let me paint you a picture, Catherine continued, beginning to pace slowly across the speaking floor. A human child enters the Academy at 16 standard years. They arrive from comfortable homes, having lived lives of relative ease on worlds where food is abundant, shelter is guaranteed, and danger is largely theoretical. As it should be for any civilized species, Velkrin interjected. Indeed, Catherine agreed. And yet, within one standard month, that same child will have learned to operate for 72 hours without sleep. They will have constructed shelter from raw materials in hostile environments. They will have navigated terrain that would break the spirits of seasoned warriors from a dozen species. They will have been cold, hungry, exhausted, and afraid. And they will have continued moving forward. This is barbaric, the Nethric delegate suddenly spoke up, their translator struggling with their rapid-fire clicking. You deliberately traumatize your young, Catherine turned to face them. Do we? Or do we prepare them for a universe that does not care about comfort? Tell me, Representative Skitch, how many of your colonists survived the Crystal Plague on Nethric Prime? The Nethric delegate's sensory stalks retracted. That was a tragedy. 90% casualties before we could evacuate. Yes, Catherine said softly. and on human colony worlds during the Sigma outbreak. We lost 30%. Do you know why the numbers were so different? Silence. Because when the medical infrastructure collapsed and the rescue ships were delayed, our colonists did not wait to die. They organized. They improvised. They found ways to survive that your people never considered because they had never been taught that survival was their responsibility first and civilization's second. Marcus leaned close to me again. "This is the part where they start to understand," he whispered. "The Academy," Catherine continued, her voice growing stronger, "teaches humans that the universe is not required to be fair. It teaches them that rescue might not come. It teaches them that hope is something you create, not something you wait to receive." But why? The question came from the Vrillian ambassador, their normally serene features creased with confusion. Why prepare for such darkness? The Federation provides protection, support, infrastructure. Your colonies are safe. Catherine's smile was sad. Ambassador Thel, your species has been part of the Federation for 12,000 standard years. You have known peace and prosperity for so long that you have forgotten what it means to stand at the edge of extinction. Humans achieved spaceflight 300 years ago. 300! We are babies in galactic terms, and in that time, we have faced extinction events 7 times. 7 times we have stood at the brink of oblivion, and 7 times we have dragged ourselves back. She paused, letting that sink in. The Academy does not teach violence, Ambassador Velkrin. It teaches stubbornness. It teaches humans to look at an impossible situation and ask not, "Can this be survived?" but "How will I survive this?" It teaches them that giving up is not an option, because giving up means death, and death is unacceptable. "This still sounds like military training," Velkrin insisted, though his voice had lost some of its earlier heat. "Does it?" Catherine asked. "Let me tell you what else the Academy teaches. It teaches wilderness medicine, because hospitals might not exist. It teaches primitive construction, because advanced tools might fail. It teaches foraging, hunting, water purification, fire starting, navigation by stars, and 100 other skills that your species automated out of existence millennia ago. These are survival skills," High Chancellor Morvax observed. "Useful, certainly, but hardly threatening to the peace and stability of the Federation." Catherine nodded slowly. "You are correct, High Chancellor, and if the training stopped there, this council would have no reason for concern. But it does not stop there." The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop several degrees. "The Academy also teaches humans to think like humans," Catherine said, "and that, Ambassador Velkrin, is what should concern you, not the weapons training, not the physical conditioning, not the survival skills. Those things are tools, nothing more. What makes them dangerous is the mind that wields them." "Explain," the High Chancellor commanded. Catherine's expression became distant, as if she were looking at something only she could see. "When I was at the Academy, 30 years ago, there was an exercise. They called it the Kobayashi scenario, an old reference to Earth's history. The premise was simple. You are in command of a ship. A distress signal reaches you from a vessel in distress. If you respond, you will certainly be destroyed. If you do not, innocent people will die. What do you do?" "It is a no-win scenario," Velkrin said. "A philosophical exercise." "That is what most species would conclude," Catherine agreed, "and most species would spend the allotted time debating the ethics of the choice, not humans. Do you know what my class did?" No one answered. We reprogrammed the simulation. We hacked it. We changed the parameters until we found a way to win. And when the instructors discovered what we had done and attempted to discipline us, we argued that they had never explicitly forbidden it. The rules did not say we could not change the scenario, only that we had to resolve it. I heard Marcus laughing quietly beside me. "Classic," he muttered. "This is cheating," Velkrin protested. "Is it?" Catherine asked. "Or is it problem-solving?" "Ambassador, humans have a saying. The only unfair fight is the one you lose. We do not believe in no-win scenarios. We do not accept defeat as inevitable. When faced with rules that guarantee failure, we change the rules. When confronted with impossible odds, we find the loophole. When told something cannot be done, we smile and ask, who is going to stop us?" The chamber erupted in agitated discussion. Several delegates were on their feet, speaking rapidly to their aides. The Nethric delegation had withdrawn entirely into their protective shells. Only the High Chancellor remained still, his ancient eyes fixed on Catherine with an expression I could not read. Catherine waited for the noise to die down before continuing. "The Academy asked which humans are trained there, Ambassador Velkrin. I will tell you, humans who refuse to quit. Humans who look at extinction and laugh. Humans who will tear apart the fabric of reality itself rather than accept defeat. Humans who, when pushed to the absolute limit of their endurance, will smile through bloody teeth and whisper, 'Is that all you've got?'" Her voice had risen as she spoke, filling the chamber with a raw intensity that made my species' danger assessment hormones flood my system. "So yes," Catherine concluded, her voice dropping back to conversational levels, "the Academy is a military academy, but it is so much more than that. It is where we teach our young that being human means never surrendering, never accepting the impossible, and never, ever knowing when to quit. It is where we take civilians and show them the truth that every human carries in their genetic code, that we are survivors of the most ruthless planet evolution ever created, and that survival is not just what we do, it is what we are." She turned back to face Velkrin directly. "You wanted to know what to fear about the Academy, Ambassador. Here is your answer. You should pray that the humans graduating from those facilities are never angry with you. Because a human with Academy training who has been taught to survive, to adapt, to overcome, and to never quit is not a soldier. They are a force of nature wearing a friendly face. And force of nature, Ambassador, cannot be negotiated with." The silence that followed was absolute. High Chancellor Morvax was the first to speak. "Ambassador Liu, I believe you have made your point. However, this does raise a concerning question. If humans are, as you describe, so naturally inclined toward survival and adaptation, why do they require formal training at all?" Catherine's laugh was unexpected and genuine. "An excellent question, High Chancellor. The answer is simple: because humans forget. We live in your beautiful Federation, with its peace and prosperity, and we start to believe that this is normal. We forget that the universe does not care about us. We forget that extinction is always one cosmic accident away. We forget that everything we have built can disappear in a heartbeat." She gestured toward the viewing ports, where stars burned in the eternal darkness. "The Academy exists to remind us, to keep that knowledge alive, because the moment humanity forgets how to survive is the moment we stop being human." Marcus stood suddenly, moving to the railing of our gallery. "Ambassador Liu," he called down. Catherine looked up, surprise flickering across her features. "Captain Reeves, I did not expect to see you here." "Last-minute addition," Marcus replied. "But I think the Council might benefit from a first-hand account, may I?" High Chancellor Morvax gestured his approval. Marcus vaulted over the railing, dropping 3 meters to the chamber floor, and landing with a grace that made several delegates recoil. He approached the speaking floor with easy confidence. "Marcus Reeves," he introduced himself. "Captain, United Earth Space Force, Academy graduate, class of 2247. I think I can answer some of the Council's questions more directly than the Ambassador." "Please proceed, Captain," the High Chancellor rumbled. Marcus clasped his hands behind his back, falling into what I recognized as a military parade rest. "I spent 4 years at the Academy on Kepler 7. I can tell you exactly what they taught me. First year, they taught me how to die." The chamber erupted in shocked exclamations. Marcus waited for quiet, with a patience I found impressive. "I know how that sounds," he continued, "but it is accurate. They put us in situations where death was the most likely outcome and taught us to accept it. Not welcome it, not embrace it, but accept that it might happen and keep functioning anyway. They taught us that fear is natural, panic is a choice, and courage is acting despite both." He began pacing, his movements economical and precise. "Second year, they taught us how to live." Sounds contradictory, right? But once you have accepted that death is possible, you can focus on avoiding it. We learned every survival skill humans have developed over 10,000 years of history. Fire, shelter, water, food, medicine. How to create all of them from nothing. How to survive in environments that would kill most species in hours. Third year, they taught us how to win. Tactics, strategy, logistics, leadership. Not just military applications, but any competitive scenario. How to identify advantages, exploit weaknesses, turn liabilities into assets. How to win fights, arguments, negotiations, anything where there is opposition to overcome. He stopped, turning to face the assembled delegates directly. Fourth year, they taught us how to lose. The confusion on dozens of alien faces would have been comical under different circumstances. "Humans hate losing," Marcus explained. "It goes against everything in our nature. But the Academy taught us that sometimes you will lose. Sometimes the enemy is too strong, the situation too dire, the odds too long. And in those moments, you need to know how to lose in a way that minimizes the damage and sets up the next fight. How to retreat without breaking. How to surrender without being destroyed. How to lose the battle while keeping yourself positioned to win the war." He smiled, and there was something sharp in it. "Of course, they also taught us that you only actually lose when you stop trying, which means that unless you are dead, you have not lost yet. It is a bit of a philosophical contradiction, but humans are comfortable with contradictions." "Captain Reeves," Velcrin spoke up, "you make this academy sound like a factory for creating unkillable warriors. Surely you must see how this appears to other species." "I do," Marcus acknowledged. "And you are not entirely wrong. But here is the thing you are missing, Ambassador. The Academy does not create warriors. It reveals them. Every human has the capacity for what we learn there. The Academy just brings it to the surface and teaches us to control it." He turned to face Catherine. "The Ambassador told you that humans are survivors. That is true. But what she did not tell you is that we are tired of just surviving. We spent 300 million years clawing our way up from single-celled organisms. We spent 2 million years running from predators on the African savanna. We spent 10,000 years building civilization from scratch, again and again, every time natural disaster or human stupidity knocked it down. His voice grew harder. We are tired, Ambassador Velkrin. We are so very tired of fighting for every scrap of existence. The Academy does not teach us to be warriors. It teaches us to be victorious. Because we have decided, as a species, that we are done merely surviving. From now on, we win. The implications of that statement settled over the Council like a heavy blanket. High Chancellor Morvax shifted his bulk, and I could see the calculations running behind his eyes. Captain Reeves, Ambassador Liu, I believe the Council understands the nature of these academies more clearly now. However, this transparency, while appreciated, does raise new concerns. If humans are being systematically trained in survival, adaptation, and victory, what assurance can you provide that these skills will not be turned against the Federation itself? Catherine and Marcus exchanged a glance, some silent communication passing between them. Catherine stepped forward. High Chancellor, members of the Council, she began, I cannot provide absolute assurance. No one can. Humans are individuals with free will, and some might choose destructive paths. But I can tell you this. The Academy teaches one more lesson above all others. She paused, ensuring she had everyone's attention. It teaches humans that we are stronger together than apart, that cooperation achieves more than competition, that the only way to truly win is to ensure everyone wins. Because humans learned, long before we reached the stars, that the greatest threats we face are not other species, not hostile environments, not even death itself. The greatest threat is isolation, being cut off, alone. Her voice softened. That is the final lesson of the Academy. After they have broken us down and built us back up, after they have taught us to survive anything and overcome everything, they teach us that none of it matters if we stand alone. They teach us that strength is meaningless without community, that survival is pointless without purpose, and that victory rings hollow unless it is shared. Marcus nodded. The Academy's motto is no one left behind. Not no human left behind, just no one. Because at the end of the day, when everything has gone wrong and the universe is trying to kill you, species does not matter. Honor does not matter. Politics does not matter. The only thing that matters is that you help the person next to you, and they help you. And together, you survive one more day. I felt something shift in my understanding, a piece of the puzzle clicking into place. This was not a threat. This was an invitation. Catherine seemed to sense the change in mood. The Academy is open to any Federation member who meets the physical and mental requirements, she said. We have had 3 Praxians graduate, 5 Netheric, even 1 brave Torathi, though they found the experience extremely challenging. Velkrin's skin flushed several different colors in rapid succession. You are training other species in your methods? We are sharing what we have learned, Catherine corrected. Teaching others how to survive when all hope seems lost. How to adapt when change seems impossible. How to win when defeat seems certain. These are not secrets to be hoarded. They are skills to be shared. But why? The Vrillian ambassador asked. What do humans gain from training potential rivals? Marcus laughed outright at that. Ambassador Thel, humans learned something important about rivals. The best way to defeat an enemy is to make them a friend. And the best way to make a friend is to help them when they need it most. If we teach you to survive, to adapt, to overcome, then when the universe inevitably throws something terrible at all of us, you will know how to fight back. And we will fight better together than we ever could apart. Catherine nodded. That is the true purpose of the Academy. Not to create human warriors, but to create Federation survivors. To ensure that when the next extinction-level event comes, and High Chancellor, it will come, we are all ready to face it together. The High Chancellor was silent for a long moment, his massive frame utterly still. Finally, he spoke. Ambassador Liu, Captain Reeves, thank you for your candor. I believe the Council has much to discuss. This session is adjourned. As the delegates began to file out, I made my way down to the chamber floor, where Marcus and Catherine stood in quiet conversation. They looked up as I approached. Commander Vorn, Catherine greeted me with a warm smile. I trust we did not bore you too terribly with our speeches. On the contrary, I replied, my mandibles clicking in amusement. I found it highly educational, though I suspect you both practiced those responses extensively. Marcus grinned. What gave us away? The way you traded off seamlessly, the perfectly timed pauses, the coordinated emotional crescendos. It was a performance, and a good one. Guilty, Catherine admitted. But everything we said was true. The Academy is exactly what we described. I know, I said. I visited Kepler-7 last cycle. I observed the training firsthand. I wrote a report. Oh? Marcus raised an eyebrow. What did your report conclude? I considered my next words carefully. It concluded that humans are either the bravest or most insane species in the galaxy. Possibly both. And that if we are fortunate enough to have them as allies rather than enemies, we should do everything in our power to keep it that way. Catherine's expression grew serious. Did you include that in your official report? No, I admitted. I filed a report stating that human training methods, while extreme by Federation standards, appear effective and pose no immediate threat. My personal conclusions I kept to myself. Until now, Marcus observed. Until now, I agreed. Because I think you both should know that not everyone on the Council is concerned about the Academy. Some of us are considering sending our own children there. Catherine blinked in surprise. You would trust us with your offspring? The question is not about trust, I said. The question is about survival. My people have been part of the Federation for 6,000 years. We have grown soft, comfortable. We have forgotten that the universe is hostile. If something catastrophic were to happen tomorrow, I am not certain we would survive it. I paused, meeting both of their eyes. But I think your species would. And I think, if we learn from you, maybe we could too. Marcus extended his hand, that peculiar human gesture of friendship and respect. I grasped it with my primary manipulator, feeling the warmth of his skin, the strength in his grip. Welcome to the Academy, Commander, he said softly. We will teach your children to survive, and when they return home, they will teach your people. And slowly, species by species, we will make the Federation strong enough to face whatever comes next. Catherine added her hand to our joined grips. Together, she said. Together, I repeated. And as I stood there in that empty council chamber, My hand joined with two humans who had just terrified an entire government body with nothing but words. I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Hope. Not the passive hope of wishing for good fortune, but the active hope of knowing that when darkness came, we would be ready to meet it. Because humans had taught us that hope was not something you waited to receive. It was something you created with your own hands, through your own efforts, by refusing to surrender even when the universe itself demanded it. The emergency session of the Galactic Council reconvened 6 hours after the Kelvar 7 incident. Ambassador Keleth had spent those hours reviewing battle footage, reading reports, and slowly accepting a reality she had desperately wanted to deny. The humans were not simply militaristic. They were exceptionally, terrifyingly good at warfare. But she was Vraxen, and Vraxen did not surrender arguments easily. The chamber filled quickly, delegates taking their positions with unusual speed. The casual conversations that typically preceded formal sessions were absent. Everyone had seen the footage. Everyone understood that the discussion about human military capabilities was no longer theoretical. Victoria Reeves and her delegation entered last, looking no different than they had that morning. Colonel Singh had returned, taking her seat with the same quiet professionalism she had displayed before. If any of them felt triumphant about the battle, they hid it perfectly. The speaker called the session to order. Before we resume our previous discussion, this council acknowledges the human fleet's successful defense of Kelvar 7. Preliminary reports indicate 47 council personnel survived thanks to their intervention. The attackers have been identified as remnants of the Kresh Dominion, a rogue faction we believed eliminated 12 years ago. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Kresh had been a council problem for decades before their supposed defeat. The question now before us, the speaker continued, is how to proceed regarding human military integration and oversight. Ambassador Keleth, you have the floor. Keleth stood, forcing her voice to remain steady. The events at Kelvar 7 have provided clarity, though perhaps not the kind anyone desired. The humans deployed 10 warships and destroyed 30 enemy vessels in under 20 minutes, with 0 losses. This level of combat effectiveness exceeds anything in Council records. She activated new data displays. I have analyzed the battle extensively. The human tactics employed techniques I have never encountered. Their weapon systems demonstrate technology we did not know they possessed. Their coordination suggests communication networks far more sophisticated than our own. And most concerning, their casualty aversion indicates a value system that prioritizes individual life to an extraordinary degree. A Quilmar delegate raised a tentacle. Forgive my confusion, Ambassador, but how is valuing life concerning? Keleth's 3 eyes fixed on the delegate. Because it means they train their warriors to win without dying. Think carefully about what that implies. Most military doctrines accept acceptable losses. The humans appear to reject that entire concept. They fight to preserve their own while destroying the enemy. This is not normal combat thinking. Sounds rather admirable, actually, the Thormac counselor observed. Admirable until you consider the logical conclusion, Keleth countered. If they refuse to accept losses, they must develop tactics of overwhelming superiority. They must become so effective at violence that opposition collapses before they suffer casualties. This battle proves they have achieved exactly that. Victoria raised her hand politely. May I respond to these observations? The speaker gestured assent. Ambassador Kelleth is partially correct in her analysis, Victoria said, standing. We do indeed train our personnel to prioritize force preservation, but she mistakes the cause. We do not seek overwhelming superiority out of aggression. We seek it because every person in uniform is someone's child, someone's parent, someone's friend. They are not numbers on a casualty report. They are individuals with lives, dreams, families waiting for them to return home. Sentiment does not explain tactical brilliance, Kelleth shot back. No, it does not, Victoria agreed. What explains our tactical effectiveness is exactly what you have been criticizing. Our academies. You wanted to know what we teach there, what we produce. Let me be explicit. She gestured to Colonel Singh. Colonel, please describe your academy training. Singh stood smoothly. I attended the Indian Military Academy for 4 years. First year focused on basic leadership, military history, physical conditioning, and fundamental tactics. Second year introduced advanced strategy, combined arms operations, and ethical decision-making frameworks. Third year covered specialized warfare, diplomatic negotiation, and cultural understanding. Fourth year synthesized everything through simulation, field exercises, and command training. And what percentage of your class graduated? Kelleth asked. 72%, Singh replied. The rest either left voluntarily or failed to meet standards. So you eliminate the weak. Singh's expression hardened slightly. We eliminate the unsuitable. Physical weakness can be overcome. Mental unfitness, ethical failure, inability to lead under pressure, these cannot. Our academies do not produce warriors. They produce leaders who understand the responsibility of command. Another human delegate, an older man named Thomas Garrett, spoke up. If I may add perspective, I graduated from the Naval Academy 38 years ago. My class began with 1,200 candidates. 317 graduated. Of those, I am one of 40 still serving. The academies have high standards because the cost of failure is measured in lives. Kelleth paced before the assembly, her frustration evident. You speak of standards, of ethics, of responsibility. But the footage from Kelvar 7 shows ruthless efficiency. Your Captain Marks destroyed those ships without hesitation, without mercy. Without hesitation, yes, Victoria said. Without mercy? No. Mercy would have been allowing them to withdraw after they opened fire on a civilian station. Mercy would have been permitting them to escape and attack again elsewhere. What you call ruthlessness, we call professionalism. They made a choice to attack innocents. Captain Marks made a choice to stop them permanently. The Heptarch observer pulsed thoughtfully. This one perceives the root of Ambassador Kelleth's concern. The humans are efficient at violence, yes, but that efficiency serves protective purposes. The question is whether such capability can coexist with council membership without destabilizing existing power structures. Ah, Victoria said softly, now we approach honesty. This was never truly about our academies or our training methods. This is about the Vraxan Empire discovering that humans can fight better than they can, and Ambassador Kelleth, fearing what that means for Vraxan dominance. Kelleth's skin flushed deep purple. How dare you suggest— I suggest nothing, Victoria interrupted, her voice hardening. I state fact. The Vraxan Empire has been the Council's primary military power for 2 centuries. You have leveraged that position for political influence, favorable trade agreements, territorial concessions. The existence of a species with superior military capability threatens that position. So you manufacture concern about our training methods, our warrior culture, our intentions. The chamber erupted again, but this time the speaker let it run for a moment before calling for order. "Ambassador Reeves," the speaker said carefully, "you make serious accusations." "I make observations based on evidence," Victoria replied. 3 months ago, the Vraxan delegation opposed human membership on the Council Security Committee. 2 months ago, they blocked our application for expanded trade routes. Last month, they argued against human participation in the Frontier Development Initiative. Every position designed to limit human influence, couched in concerns about our inexperience or aggressive tendencies. And now this formal challenge to our military institutions. Kelleth fought to control her voice. Those decisions were based on legitimate concerns about an untested species gaining too much influence too quickly. Were they? Marcus Holt activated his datapad. "Because I have communication intercepts, legally obtained through open channels, showing Vraxan diplomats explicitly discussing strategies to contain human expansion. Quote, we cannot allow this species to establish parity with the Empire. Their technological advancement rate threatens our position. We must limit their growth through diplomatic means before they become too powerful to constrain." The silence that fell was toxic. The speaker's shell creaked ominously. "Ambassador, Kelleth, are these intercepts authentic?" Kelleth wanted to lie, wanted to deny, but she knew verification would take minutes. Strategic discussions between allies are not unusual. Every species seeks to maintain advantageous positions. "True," the Quilmar delegate said quietly. "But most species do not do so while simultaneously accusing others of aggressive intent. The hypocrisy is rather stunning." Victoria returned to her seat, her expression neutral once more. "I understand the Vraxan concern. Power dynamics shifting is uncomfortable. But let me be absolutely clear about human intentions regarding military force." She stood again, and this time every eye in the chamber locked onto her. "We maintain our academies because we refuse to be unprepared. We train millions because we have learned that peace without strength is simply waiting for conquest. We build warships because the galaxy is dangerous, and we will not rely on others for our survival. But, and this is critical, we have no interest in domination." "Easy words from a position of strength," Kelleth muttered. "Are they?" Victoria's smile was cold. "Let us examine alternatives. If we were truly aggressive, would we not have demanded territorial concessions upon joining the Council? Would we not have positioned fleets throughout Council space? Would we not have sought command positions in joint operations?" She began counting on her fingers. "Instead, we accepted border territories no one else wanted. We positioned our fleets only in human-controlled space. We volunteered for support roles rather than demanding command. And when Kelvar 7 called for help, we responded not because it served our interests, but because people were dying, and we had the capability to save them." The Thormac counselor spoke thoughtfully. "The human argument has merit. Their actions do not match their supposed aggressive nature." "Actions can be deceiving," Kelleth argued. "They play a long game, building trust before revealing true intentions." Colonel Singh laughed. Actually laughed, a sound so unexpected that several delegates startled. "Forgive me, Ambassador, but if we were playing a long game of deception, would we really maintain such obvious military strength? Would we not hide our capabilities, pretend weakness, lull you into complacency before striking? Your theory requires us to be simultaneously clever enough to fool the entire Council and stupid enough to advertise our military superiority. Which is it?" Kelleth had no response. Thomas Garrett cleared his throat. Perhaps I can offer perspective that might ease concerns. I mentioned that only 40 of my academy class remain in service. Would you like to know where the rest went? When no one objected, he continued. 27 are civilian government officials. 41 work in private industry, mostly engineering and logistics. 18 became teachers. 94 are in medical fields. 37 work in scientific research. The rest pursued various civilian careers. Our academies train leaders. Ambassador Kelleth. Some lead in military contexts, but many lead elsewhere. The academies teach problem-solving, ethical reasoning, stress management, teamwork, and analytical thinking, Singh added. These skills apply to any career. Yes, we teach warfare, but we teach it as one tool among many. And we emphasize that it is the last resort, not the first. The speaker tapped his staff thoughtfully. This council has heard arguments from both sides. The question remains what action, if any, to take regarding human military institutions. Ambassador Kelleth, what specific proposal do you make? Kelleth hesitated. The battle at Kelvar 7 had destroyed her stronger arguments. She could no longer credibly claim humans were dangerously incompetent or recklessly aggressive. But she could not simply abandon her position without losing face. I propose a compromise, she said finally. The humans may maintain their academies and military forces without council oversight. In exchange, they agree to limitations on fleet deployment in council space and accept restrictions on military technology sharing with other species. Victoria's eyebrow arched. So we provide military assistance when needed, but accept permanent second-class status regarding force projection and technology. Interesting definition of compromise. It acknowledges both council security concerns and human capabilities, Kelleth argued. It acknowledges Vraxan concern about losing military dominance, Marcus countered. If our technology is so dangerous, why does the Empire want to ensure no one else can access it? If our deployment is so threatening, why only restrict it in council space? We could mass forces in human territory just as easily. The Heptarch observer pulsed again. This one suggests an alternative. The humans have demonstrated capability and restraint. Perhaps the solution is integration rather than restriction. Invite human officers to teach at council military institutions. Request human participation in joint defense planning. Create frameworks for cooperation rather than competition. Several delegates murmured approval. Kelleth felt control slipping further. The Heptarch proposal has merit, but it does not address the fundamental concern. Human military philosophy differs drastically from council norms. Their training emphasizes individual initiative, aggressive tactics, and acceptable risk-taking. Integrating such thinking could destabilize established doctrines. Or improve them, the Quilmar delegate suggested. Our defense forces follow rigid protocols that failed at Kelvar 7. The human approach clearly has advantages. Advantages purchased through centuries of warfare, Kelleth snapped. They perfected violence through practice. Do you want to learn those lessons the same way? Victoria stood abruptly, her patience clearly exhausted. Enough. Ambassador Kelleth, you want to know about our academies? You want to understand what we teach? Fine. Let me tell you about one specific lesson every academy graduate learns. The chamber fell silent. It is called the Kobayashi Maru scenario, though different academies use different names. It is a no-win situation, a test designed to be impossible. Cadets are given command of a simulation where they must choose between abandoning civilians to certain death or attempting a rescue that will result in their own destruction. There is no right answer, no clever solution, no way to win. She paused, letting that sink in. The purpose is not to test tactical skill. It is to teach future officers that sometimes, despite your best efforts, despite your training, despite your determination, people will die, and it will be your responsibility. It teaches them that command means carrying the weight of those deaths for the rest of your life. Victoria's voice dropped lower, harder. Every graduate of our academies has faced that scenario. Everyone has experienced the helplessness of impossible choices, and everyone learned that the only unacceptable response is to give up, to surrender, to accept defeat without fighting for every possible chance at survival. She turned to face Keleth directly. You asked which humans are trained in our academies. They are the ones who learned that leadership means making terrible decisions and living with the consequences. They are the ones who understand that violence is sometimes necessary, but never glorious. They are the ones who will fight to their last breath to protect others, not because they love war, but because they hate what happens when good people do nothing. The chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then the speaker spoke, his ancient voice carrying finality. This council has heard sufficient arguments. We will vote on 3 proposals. First, the Vraxon proposal for restrictions on human military deployment and technology sharing. Second, the Heptarch proposal for military integration and cooperation. Third, a motion to take no action and allow current arrangements to continue. The vote was swift. The Vraxon proposal failed spectacularly, supported only by 3 delegations closely allied with the Empire. The integration proposal passed overwhelmingly. The motion for no action became irrelevant. Keleth sat in stunned silence as the implications became clear. Not only had she failed to restrict human military power, she had inadvertently created a framework for humans to influence Council defense policies directly. Victoria approached her as the chamber began to empty. Ambassador Keleth, a word. Keleth looked up, expecting triumph or condescension. Instead, she found only tired professionalism. You were not entirely wrong in your concerns, Victoria said quietly. We are a dangerous species. Our academies do produce exceptionally effective warriors. Our military capability does exceed Council norms. And yes, we could pose a serious threat if we chose aggression. Then why? Because we learned something else through our bloody history, Victoria interrupted. We learned that the strong have 2 choices. They can use their strength to dominate, to conquer, to take what they want through force. Or they can use it to protect, to defend, to create space for others to flourish. The first path leads to resentment, rebellion, and eventual collapse. The second leads to cooperation, growth, and lasting peace. She offered her hand. The Vraxon Empire can continue seeing us as rivals, or you can see us as partners. Your choice. Keleth stared at the offered hand for a long moment before accepting it. Partners with unequal strength make uncomfortable alliances. Only if the stronger partner abuses their position, Victoria replied. We have no interest in replacing Vraxon dominance with human dominance. We want stability, prosperity, and security for all Council species. If that means working together rather than competing, so be it. Later, in her private quarters, Keleth reviewed the day's events. She pulled up the Kelvar 7 footage again, watching Captain Marks and her crew work with that frightening efficiency. But this time, she paid attention to different details. The rescue operations that began the moment the battle ended. The medical teams deployed despite potential remaining threats. the careful recovery of both Council personnel and enemy survivors, the human ships maintaining defensive positions around the damaged station for hours after the fight concluded. These were not the actions of aggressive conquerors. These were the actions of protectors. She pulled up Academy curriculum data, reading through course descriptions. Ethics and moral leadership. Laws, armed conflict. Cultural awareness and diplomacy. Peace building and reconstruction. For every course on tactics or weapons systems, there were 2 on restraint, responsibility, and peaceful resolution. Finally, she accessed records of Academy graduates who left military service. The numbers were staggering. For every officer who remained in uniform for a full career, 3 transitioned to civilian leadership roles. They became politicians who understood defense needs, engineers who designed better infrastructure, teachers who educated the next generation about the costs of war. The academies were not simply producing warriors. They were producing leaders who understood both the necessity and the horror of violence, who could fight when needed but preferred not to, who saw military power as a tool for peace rather than conquest. Kelleth drafted a private message to the Vraxen High Command. Her report was frank, blunt, and likely to be unpopular. The humans were not a threat to be contained. They were an ally to be cultivated. Their military strength could serve Council interests if properly integrated. Attempting to limit or control them would only create the adversarial relationship everyone claimed to. Fear. She sent the message and sat back, knowing her political career might not survive such a reversal. But she was Vraxen, and Vraxen faced reality, however uncomfortable. 3 weeks later, the first human instructors arrived at the Vraxen Military Institute. They were Academy graduates, carefully selected for their combination of combat experience and teaching ability. Their integration into the curriculum was rocky at first, their methods clashing with established traditions. But within a year, Vraxon tactical performance improved measurably. Within 2 years, other Council species requested similar exchanges. Within 5 years, joint human and Council forces were operating throughout the frontier, their combined capabilities exceeding what either could accomplish alone. And through it all, the human academies continued their work, training leaders, teaching restraint, preparing warriors who understood that true strength meant knowing when not to fight. Ambassador Kelleth eventually visited West Point during a diplomatic exchange. She watched young humans barely past adolescence, learning to lead, to think, to question, to understand the weight of command. She attended a lecture on military ethics, where the instructor spent an hour discussing a historical battle, not in terms of tactical brilliance, but in terms of civilian casualties and whether the objective had justified the cost. She asked one young cadet what he hoped to accomplish after graduation. His answer was simple: "I want to serve my species and the Council. I want to protect people who cannot protect themselves. And I hope I never have to fire a weapon in anger. But if I do, I want to be skilled enough that the fight ends quickly with minimum casualties on all sides." Kelleth reported back to the Vraxen High Command with a final assessment. The human academies were indeed dangerous. They produced warriors of exceptional capability, leaders of remarkable vision, and officers of uncommon restraint. The galaxy was safer for their existence, and any species foolish enough to threaten Council peace would learn, as the Kresh remnants had learned at Kelvar 7, that humans trained in those academies fought not with rage or hatred, but with cold professional competence that made rage look inefficient by comparison. The truly terrifying thought, Kelleth reflected, was that Victoria Reeves had been absolutely correct. The battle at Kelvar 7 had showcased professional soldiers doing their jobs. Efficient, controlled, devastating. She prayed to her ancestors that the galaxy never saw what Academy-trained humans looked like when they were truly angry. Because if professional competence could destroy 30 ships in 20 minutes, she could not imagine what righteous fury would accomplish. And she hoped no one would ever be foolish enough to find out.